So on the GBPUSD, you know, we were on a very profitable trade last week on the GBPUSD following the NFP. Remember, we had this bullish trend line identified and we were part of this breakdown of that bullish trend line here right around the 1.22500 level to give us a signal of a strong bearish momentum. And congrats to those who have been part of this trade, but for the sake of the session, let's quickly run through the ideas that brought us to this point in this market. So the first thing we did was to look at the structure we have on the daily time frame, and on the daily time frame we have a couple of key levels which we said we shall be using to guide our trading activity. Now the first key level we identified on the daily time frame is the 1.24500 level, which has been a major determinant of price action in the last 7 to 8 months. Look at how this level has been a strong buying niche at one point before we saw the breakdown of that structure here. We saw buying pressure before this level was finally broken in the month of June of last year. And since the breakdown of that structure in the month of June last year, price action had continued to trade below this level to further emphasize the strength of the sellers at this point in the market. And if we look at what happened here in the last couple of weeks, we saw though we had a bullish momentum since the beginning of the year, where price action continued to find higher highs after breaking out of the 1.200 level, respecting that bullish trend line at the same time. But one thing that happened here was that when price got into the 1.24500 level, we saw selling pressure around that area, which lasted about 2 weeks on this one to further emphasize how strong the sellers are at that particular point in time. And we actually anticipated that sellers might likely come in, and we were lucky enough to be part of the sell move that broke down the 1.22500 level, breaking down that bullish trend line to inside that bearish move last week. And in addition to the 1.24500 level is this bullish trend line which has been holding bullish momentum here since the month of September of last year. So you can see if we connect the series of higher lows here, we have that bullish trend line figured out. And now that we have a breakdown of that bullish trend line sharing a confluence with the 1.22500 level, what is going to be our plans for this week? Well, if you look at this structure closely, let me zoom in so that we can see things more clearly here. You can see that price action is approaching another key level at the 1.200 level. If we go to as far back as the month of November, you will see how that level has been a strong buying niche in this market since the breakout happened in the month of November. We saw what happened here in the month of December. We saw buy pressure, and even at the beginning of this year, we saw buy pressure resume around the 1.200 area. So you would agree with me that at this point we are at a critical point, as we need to see how price action will be reacting to the 1.200 level to decide what our next line of action will be. And if we take this structure into consideration, there are two things, I think three good things that could happen from this current structure. We could see a situation whereby pressure resumes above the 1.200 level on our lower time frame to incite probably price coming back to do a retest of structure. Remember, we had the breakdown of both the 1.22500 and this bullish trend line during the course of last week's trading session. And from a technical standpoint, whenever we have a breakdown of a structure, there is a likelihood that price will come back to do a retest of that structure to incite another wave of bearish momentum. So we shall be taking this into consideration as well while we plan our trade for today. And another thing that could happen here is price action could evolve into a trend continuation pattern around the 1.200 level. It could be a bearish rectangular pattern, breakdown retest of structure on our lower time frame, then incite another wave of bearish momentum. So these are the things we shall be looking forward to on our lower time frame. So the next thing we are going to be doing right now is to scale down to the lower time frame. Let's see how price action has been reacting to this current structure since the beginning of the week. Then we can use whatever structure we can identify on the lower time frame to decide what our next line of action will be. So I will be scaling down to a much lower time frame right now, and let me see if I could share something on the 4 hours time frame. Okay, let's go right into the 1 hour time frame, where we were able to identify a structure after monitoring the character of price action since the beginning of this new week. So since the beginning of the week, this is what we were able to identify on the 1 hour time frame. We have a beautiful flat channel where we have a resistance point at the 1.20650 level. So as you can see, every attempt by the buyers to break out of the structure has been met with strong resistance from the sellers. And then we also have the support level of the channel sitting at the 1.20300 level to give us a buying niche around that particular area. So we have a beautiful flat channel at this point, and if we take into consideration the impulsive bearish leg that we had last week, this channel could transition into a trend continuation pattern in the form of a bearish rectangular pattern, where a breakdown of the 1.20300 level will incite a bearish momentum at this point. And if a further breakdown of the 1.200 level happens, we want to be thinking of adding more position to our existing trade on the GBPUSD. So the current structure supporting the sell momentum here has a tendency of giving us multiple entries if we are conscious enough to be on standby to catch these opportunities. In as much as this current structure is looking more bearish at this point, we should not ignore the possibilities that buyer could actually come in. So because of this, I already have a buy stop order just in case I get stopped out from my sell position right above the 1.20650, where if a breakout retest of the structure happens, we want to be thinking of buying the GBPUSD. And at this point, that breakout of the 1.20650 level will be considered as a counter trend opportunity, which might evolve into a retracement of that previous impulse leg that we have here, retracement into probably our golden zone area. It could be the 50%, 61.8%, or the 78.6% of the previous impulse leg to incite another wave of bearish momentum. And if you look at the structure very well, you will see that we have a trend line around that area just in case price action breaks out of the 1.20650. We have a trend line here which could guide any selling momentum if it so happens that price action comes back into that structure. So we want to take this into consideration as well as we plan against the New York session today. So like I said here, I already have my sell position triggered below the 1.20300, and I hope that price will continue to go to the downside from this area. So remember that we also have an opportunity to add more position if price action goes ahead to break down the 1.200 level. So let's keep all these ideas in mind as we continue to monitor price action. And as usual, you can screenshot my screen so that you can use it as a reference point when you are about to make your individual decision. So if you have any questions regarding what I just explained so far, feel free to drop your inquiries in the comment section.